Welcome to this tutorial, which looks at the new data selection process introduced in Pronto 6.0. This full tutorial covers the following four aspects of the data selection process. 1. Grouping data items into folders. 2. Showing hiding folders and items of interest. 3. Setting and using favorite selections. And 4. Easily selecting single or multiple items with the mouse or keyboard. Note, each of these sections is also covered by its own shorter tutorial. The shorter tutorials cover each of the four areas in slightly more detail than this tutorial, but this tutorial is intended to be a more flowing outline of the whole process. Now, the data selection process has been enhanced because, with loggers capable of recording 500 or so data streams, the data list can get quite long and cumbersome. Flicking down this project, we can immediately see that the list is dominated by a large number of harmonics. So, the first thing we might want to do to make the list more manageable is group the data into folders. We group the data into folders by choosing a column to group by, and the data is split into one folder for each unique value or name in that column. For example, the type parameter is a good starting point for categorizing the data. So I'd click on the Group By drop-down box and select Type. Note that the grouping drop-down boxes allow you to group data by the values in any of the columns in the list. The list is now a collection of top-level folders, and the Type column has moved over to the left. If we overlay the original Type column data over the collapsed list, we can see how a folder has been created for each of the type values in the column. The relevant data streams will be grouped under each of the folders. Now, if, say, we wanted to look at the RMS voltage and transients of phase A to neutral on a graph, I can open the Voltage AC folder, and I'm already down from 500 data streams to a manageable 20 or so. But if I wanted to go a step further, knowing I was only interested in phase A, I could either sort by the phase column, or add a second level of grouping, this time by phase. So I'd click on the Then By drop-down box, which would offer me the other column titles, i.e. without type, which we're already using, and I'd select phase. Now we're down to the three data streams of voltage between phase A and neutral, and I'm interested in two: the adaptive store readings, showing the big picture of the full recording, and the transients, showing the high-speed detail. I can click anywhere on the line to select or deselect these items, and I'm ready to graph them. If I'm happy with my normal graph defaults, I can just click on Graph this selection, and very quickly we've got the graph we wanted. Note, as a slight aside, I'd like to introduce two additional Pronto 6.0 enhancements we've made to help make sense of a graph like this. Firstly, it may be easier to separate the two traces on the y-axis, as any interesting sections of the RMS data are lost behind the transient data. This can easily be done using the Arrange Axes option from the Format menu. This function isn't new to Pronto, but the presentation has been improved. So I'll just move the second trace to its own axis. Additionally, simpler zoom functionality has been added, removing the need to change to the zoom cursors. With just a few left clicks and drags, we can get straight to the area of interest, highlighted on the adaptive store reading and detailed by the transient data. So this has quickly covered the grouping options, so let's move on to the Show and Hide buttons that help manage which folders and items we include in the view. Of the 5 Show and Hide buttons, the first 3 are used to expand and collapse grouping folders. The first button, Expand All, shows a folder icon with a plus sign. Clicking on this, as you'd expect, expands one level of folders. Clicking it a second time opens a second level of folders. In the same way, the second button, Collapse All, which shows a folder icon with a minus sign, collapses one level of folders. Again, if both levels of folders are expanded, you'd need to click this button twice to collapse all folders. However, depending on the groupings used, there could be a lot of folders, so expanding all folders may just complicate the view. In this situation, the third button can be used. This button, showing a folder with a checkbox, expands all folders with selected items and collapses all folders without. The fourth button is a toggle button and is used to hide all non-selected items. If I click it once, any non-selected items are hidden from view. You can now see that it's in the pushed in state. To get all the items back, I just click it again. Note that if I deselect any items, they'll remain in the tree, giving me a chance to reselect them. However, if you change the tree in any way, i.e. change the grouping or column sorting, any deselected items will be removed from the view until you toggle the Hide Unselected button off again. You may find this button useful if, for example, you just want to confirm what you've got selected in the list, or if you want to start by selecting a larger group of data and then refining the selection, perhaps using different folder groupings on the reduced dataset. The last button, showing a checkbox being rubbed out, simply clears the current selection. You'll probably use this a lot as you go between selections for different graphs and tables. The last new set of buttons along the top brings us on to the third part of this tutorial, the favorites. Favorites are simple collections of data streams that you frequently use together and so may like to be able to select in one go. This new set of buttons allows you to add, delete and rename favorites, and favorites are stored in the favorites folder here. As a very basic example, I could select the voltage data streams I was initially interested in and save them as a favorite for quick selection next time. To do this, I make the selection I want and click on Add New Favorite. A new favorite is added to the favorites list and I'm given the opportunity to give it a new name. If I quickly create another favorite, you can see how favorite selections interact. I'll select the RMS voltages on a number of channels, including channel 1, but no transients. This will give me some overlap with the other favorite I've just added. Now you can see that multiple favorites can be selected, and any data streams in any of the selected favorites are then selected. Deselecting a favorite then deselects any data streams that were only in that favorite. Now, a couple of points of note. Selecting a favorite clears the main list of any data streams not in that favorite, so you don't have to click on the Clear Selection button first. And as just shown, selecting additional favorites adds to the selection. If you then select or deselect streams individually from the main list, the favorites become unchecked because they are no longer fully representative of what is selected. Play around with the selection and it'll become clear. The last part of this tutorial briefly describes how single or multiple data items can quickly be selected using the mouse and/or keyboard. There are many ways to select one or more items using either the mouse or the keyboard. To simply select or deselect a single data item, click anywhere on the line. If the items are being grouped and so are within a folder or hierarchy of folders, you'll see that the change of selection is also updated for the folder or folders. To select an entire folder, click on the folder item. Note that double-clicking on a folder item expands or collapses it. To select an item or folder using the keyboard, use the up and down arrow keys to navigate to the item of choice, and then hit the spacebar to toggle the selection state. There are several ways to select multiple items in one go. Firstly, you can hold down the left mouse button and drag the box across the data streams to select. Note that if you drag over a folder, the entire folder is selected, as if you were clicking on that folder. To deselect a group, start the drag on a previously checked item and it will be unchecked, as will all other items in the drag box. Alternatively, you can select a group of items by clicking the first item in the group, holding down the Shift key and clicking the last item in the group. All items in between will be selected. To deselect a group in this way, keeping the Shift key down, click again on the last item. This toggles the checked state of all the items in the group. You can also use just the keyboard to select a group. Use the up and down arrow keys to navigate to the first item in the selection. Then hold the Shift key and navigate to the last item in the group, again using the up and down keys. As you can see, the group items are highlighted, i.e. they have the blue boxes around them, but not checked yet. When you've highlighted the whole group, press the spacebar to toggle the checked state of all the items in the group. Now note, you cannot select a group of streams in the main list and a group of favorites at the same time, so the selected list stops or starts at the start of the favorites. Finally, it should be added that the standard Windows keyboard shortcuts can be applied to folders. For example, with the focus on a folder item, if you press the right arrow key or the plus key, the folder will be expanded by one level. Conversely, if you press the left arrow key or the minus key, the folder is collapsed. And pressing the asterisk key on a collapsed top-level folder will expand that folder and any subfolders within it. And one final note. In the project browser, there are also buttons that act on highlighted items, i.e. items that have the blue highlight on them. This is not the same as selecting items using their checkboxes as we've discussed here. Typically, we select data using the checkboxes to include it in an analysis, say a graph or a table. Items are highlighted where you may want to perform an action that refers to a single item, check the properties of a data stream, for example. But for more information on how highlighting items works in the project browser, please see the project browser tutorial. Thanks for watching this tutorial.